Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
And that's what I told them. We're not going to accept any less than 3.2 million to close that deal. Oh, hey, we're live. David, Will, what's going on, guys?
I wish that there was 3.2 million involved anywhere in my life right now.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of pages to go through. You might be around 3.2 million pages, no?
It might be that.
Can we?
What
you've
you've
been working on, or
we were talking about this before David came in, but those are stacked up papers from Waco that I basically had to I had to print them off, rescan them in, so I could take out the artifacts and clean up the papers a little bit. And the reason
what does that mean? What does that mean? Clean up the papers a little bit. Tell me about that.
Still a little bit of blood and ash.
Okay, so they were in there for 51 days. The phone's going the entire time. Tapes are only about 80 minutes tops, because some of them are a little shorter depending on how fast they were talking. But
so this is the transcript, is what you're saying, is in that,
right? Yeah. So there's 249 tapes or something crazy like that, and they've been kind of locked down audio wise because what's only available is what slipped out during the trials in San Antonio and what has been confiscated by like Baylor University and things of that nature. But the universities or the academic institutions that have the audio tapes have digitized them but won't let them leave. So you have to like go in to the library and sit down and listen to it. So right now there's a big push from all of these individuals who are involved with the religious studies of Waco, who are now trying to digitize those tapes because they've basically been sitting in collections in the form of cassette tapes for like 30 years. And they want the files because the files are out of order. Like it's hard to get through the files because they're jumbled up. And there's two different agencies involved. So there's two different copies. There's the Treasury Department's copy and the FBI's copy.
Is this the blue book you're talking about? The Treasury's blue book?
The blue book? What do you mean?
Well, the Treasury's official findings was reported as an investigation into Vernon, aka David Koresh, and I have this big blue cover on it.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was like their compilation of everything. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about that during the negotiations, there were transcripts being made in real time, and there was two different kinds of them. There was what I call the minutes, which is like a quick breakdown of what everybody's talking about so you can find it. There's three of those, and they're really, really long. Then there's the tapes, which are as they're talking, somebody is transcribing it. Now there's two copies of that. One was given to the Treasury Department up until about tape 90, 96. And then the other one is the FBI's records, which are all the way to 240 or 249 or whatever the end tape is.
Okay, so it's ATF's version of the phone call transcriptions and the FBI's version of the transcripts.
Right. And they're in two different conditions. Like the FBI's is obfuscated to the extreme with different tactics. One for sure is digitally obfuscated. But here, I'll show you for a second. This on top is like tape 86, right? And so they're all about this length. And there's about maybe 3 to 4 tapes per folder. And it gets really confusing because like there's some real confusion on what somebody's saying at what given time or talking about is like actually what folder it is. And they have artifacts on them. So you can see that it has a line down here with the numbers for the minutes. And then sometimes they'll have the hole punches. Sometimes they'll have staple marks on the side. Sometimes they'll have court head pages or have a stamp that they were used in court. And I've basically been asked to clean all of that up because they're scanned and rescanned and stapled and not all in the same condition and out of order. Like all of a sudden it will be page 29 from folder 86.
So you have an editing job. So you're going to transcribe this from the transcription, so to speak. In other words, you're going to have this digital so that you can then put any keyword in and then search it in an instant, which you can't do when it's, might as well be longhand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm cleaning it up so you can put it into OCR programs and have it read off to you or searched or edited.
Yeah.
But what I've come across is that somebody already did that. There's a certain, probably about half of them that look like they've been tampered with. Like they've already been put through OCR. And so there's like a transcription hidden layer, like a computer translating what's actually being said. And I had to either print those off or rescan them or turn them into a PNG and then put them back into like Acrobat so that I could get rid of the artifacts. But I also have to put them in order. So I have to also check that whatever page 1 through like 59 or whatever, that they're in order and haven't been like jerked around. And like I said, there's one, get rid of the artifact, which I think, I can hear. Hi.
You need to put on headphones maybe. Or earplug. Whatever
we can just put the cancellation on. There we go. Done.
Cancellation. Okay.
And so there's one that was the tape where they're actually like admitting that they know what David's talking about. Like there's a part where the FBI goes, he's like, oh, wait. You're not interpreting the seals. Somebody gave you the seals. Well, why don't you have a bunch of experts about Christianity and theology in there with you? And David,
right, I could see that. That would make sense for them to be like treating it like, well, if we were approaching this just as like a scholarly matter and not as like, because there's an argument for like the bad faith phenomenon. Like if you're looking at him and you're just like, you're assuming all you are is a nut, then how do you have how do you have any kind of conversation? In other words, if anybody involved on the law enforcement side was trying to do genuine conflict resolution, you'd have to at least entertain it as a scholarly activity. And what you'd expect to hear from them then would be like, okay, well, what could we do to mitigate from a scholarly angle? Like, why do we, if all you're doing is assuming that the guy is a nut, then you're destined to you have no possibility for resolution. Well, they wanted to resolve the issue, right? Let's treat good faith as far as the law enforcement was concerned. No,
but before all this, I was talking to Will because I came across this movie called In the Line of Duty: Ambush in Waco, and it was 1993, and it was a direct-to-TV movie based on the events of Waco. But the weird thing is that fully produced, over an hour and a half long. It's got a whole bunch of actors in it, and
Wasn't
it
that a
came
Tom
out
Clancy title? I'm sorry, the first part of that.
in the Line of Duty. Maybe
In the Line of Fire.
In the Line of Fire.
In the Line of Duty was a
like
was a
Call of
series.
Duty in the Line of Duty.
Well,
What?
it was a whole series on NBC that they put out, and each one of them had to do with kind of like being behind the scenes with the ATF or the FBI, and that was kind of like in the Line of Duty. And this one was about the ATF mainly. They didn't really get into the FBI, but the weird thing is that it was broadcast the day, like a week after Mount Carmel burnt down. And Will was telling me that Mount Carmel burnt down like 51 days after the actual final raid. So we're talking April 19th. But anyways, this direct to TV movie came out, and it had the entire narrative in there. And I just can't fathom Hollywood in the early 90s putting the whole script together, getting the lighting, casting the people, getting it all done and edited and ready for broadcast within two months, less than 2 months. So it almost feels like the whole thing was, at least the show was scripted.
Is that the one where they brought out the fire extinguishers on the dogs? So there was one that was like definitely a propaganda movie, and I've only seen clips of it. I haven't watched the whole thing. But in it, when the ATF get there, they go up to the dog like cage, and they show them dousing them with like fire extinguishers.
The ATF doing that dog? No way. This one is very, very pro ATF. ATF are basically like American gladiators in this.
The first shot fired.
American gladiators. This is how I know that Alex Jones is not Bill Hicks, because if Alex Jones was Bill Hicks, he'd be way more focused on Waco.
You'd probably, but that's where Alex Jones is from also. That's like the whole thing, right? They're from the same town.
Right.
Alex Jones.
Waco is a wild place too, because before Mount Carmel, before David Koresh or anything, they already had the most abnormally high amount of gun investigations to capita. So for some reason, that region in particular was already an ATF hotspot. So they were kind of waiting for just the perfect storm to erupt in this hyper fixated locale that they had just identified.
What was it that they didn't? The argument for the ATF is that they didn't want a repeat of what had happened not long before.
Ruby Ridge was the first one.
Ruby Ridge
happened 6 months before, and some of the people who are involved with Ruby Ridge are also involved with Waco. And a lot of speculation goes to the fact that the ATF was worried about losing funding because of Ruby Ridge, because that was considered to be their fuck up also. And so the ATF was trying to rush this and make it very public. And that's why they had a camera crew out there on February 28th when it initially happened. But no, that tape has mysteriously come up missing.
I gotta stop right there and just say I could be wrong about this, but my assumption is as you say Ruby Ridge, that Anna Nicole is over there thinking Jack Ruby like Ruby slippers. What is the Ruby
Ridge wallet?
Am I wrong?
I have definitely like contemplated the Ruby slippers and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What do we got?
Any Waco specific?
The Waco?
Yeah, I mean you've got friends and family, in that area, right? In the state at least.
No, I'm from California. I
thought you knew someone from Mission Ranch, right? And that's Texas.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's in Austin. That's like more south, Texas. So, yeah, I know people that go to the Camp Mystic, but like the Waco area, I don't really know anybody. I knew a couple of people in Dallas, which is on the way.
Haven't two of you guys been there? David and Will, haven't you guys actually been to Waco or no?
I probably have driven through the area, but I have not spent much time in Waco. I'm fascinated by it. Like, I want to visit it. I tried to make a trip down there to digitize those tapes, but instead of the tapes, they gave me the jobs of the files. And I mean, even Bill Klaus sent me, you guys were talking about how weird Waco is. Like, that's the original, like, that's the origin point of Dr. Pepper. I found that out because of Bill Klaus.
Dude,
I think about Waco in terms of like wake, like the word wake is in it, and so it's kind of like a wake up of where we are and what's going on in this world. But also, I don't know what, but I've been really pondering like the whole Chip and Joanna Gaines being from Waco too, with the Magnolia show and like the Fixer Upper. I don't know like where
Oh,
I'm
the Magnolia. You're talking about the people who do they flip houses or redesign houses for Waco.
from like like an America cultural family.
Okay.
Chip
Yeah. So
and I can't remember her name. His name.
Dr. Pepper was the original for like the Beatles Sergeant Pepper. It was originally called Dr. Pepper, and they claim that when they came up with that they didn't know that it was a soda that was popular from America, and so they had to change it for legal reasons to Sergeant Pepper. My mind goes to Forrest Gump saying, "I must have had me about 15 Dr. Peppers," and how 15 is the number of the devil in tarot. And I think of the devil's pepper from Rosemary's Baby that she's given, to protect or whatever, that came from the dead woman who was in apartment 2A. But because I'm sorry, I am so tangential, but that's what sync is. I have hanging on my wall a centerfold from 1968 of the Playmate of the Year. I forget her name. It's 2 V's, her initials, but she's in Rosemary's Baby. The Playmate of the Year in 1968, the year that Rosemary's came out.
That's why
Rosemary's Babies came out. She was it was the worst accident, maybe the only accident in a Playboy photo shoot historically. So like she was on a hammock and she fell off the hammock and she broke, I think it was 4 ribs. Years later, she shot her husband, I guess. They had like a meth problem or some crazy thing. But in the movie, she says, "You look just like so-and-so." And the name that she gives was the woman's actual name, not the name that she was known by, like in real life. So she's literally saying, "You look like yourself," basically. And there is a not a remake, but there is a prequel to Rosemary's Baby that came out like last year that no one talks about. I believe it's called Apartment 2A, and it was really good. Like it wasn't great, but it was like worth talking about. I'm surprised no one ever mentioned it. But yeah, they show like the her story. So it's just, I don't know. I'm all over the place here, but yeah.
I gotta show you guys something because I thought where we are in Synctank. So Dr. Pepper came from 2 different guys, right? This is the guy that actually invented it. This guy called Charles Alderton, who technically was a doctor. He had a doctorate, studied medicine at U of T. But it also says that originally it was called a Waco. If you wanted a Dr. Pepper, not only did you call it a Waco, but they would walk up to the counter and say, "I want to shoot a Waco." That was your way of ordering a Dr. Pepper. And then he sells this to the guy that owned the shop, and the guy that owned the shop renames it to Dr. Pepper. But the original name for a Dr. Pepper was a Waco.
So we see in the comments
about the 23 ingredients too, because of that number 23 in like the DNA.
Right.
But also
is associated to death.
Yeah, well, not just death, but like a terrible accident, right?
Right.
So if we're talking William S. Burroughs, because some ship captain bragged to him that he had Captain Clark, right, which connects to Superman and Superman's issue 23 with the Nazi ship sinking. Yeah. But no, it's so weird. Yeah, no, he bragged about how many ship runs he had without an incident. And then what was it? Thank you. That's the
pepper. The word pepper has been associated to the devil as well.
That's what I'm saying.
I was gonna say about like hot saucing, because that became like some controversial like punishment for kids. Like I don't know, in the early 2000s was like hot saucing them, and like how Hillary Clinton she like tried to take the whole like I carry hot sauce in my purse.
I've never heard this before. It was called, you would just put hot sauce on a kid.
Like there was I remember like one of the girls from what was that show? What was that show where they were in a boarding school in the 80s? Facts of Life. So that one of those, like she grew up and became like a mom, and then she was like talking about how she disciplines her kids, and it was just like make it like hot saucy, like putting hot sauce on her tongue or something, and like the spiciness of the pepper was a form of discipline. And so to like to consider that in terms of like the devil and hot like peppers and the devil card and the tarot.
So when Hillary Clinton says we're going to bring them to heel, you know, is this how she does it? Is this?
She's got hot sauce in her bag because she's always at the ready to torture some kid for whatever reason.
You know that show that's like people like eat chicken with different hot sauces, and it's like a celebrity show. Do you know what I'm talking about? I forget what that show is called. Where
Hot
it's like,
Ones?
is that what it? Yeah, that's
Hot
it.
Ones.
And so like it just so happens that like a bunch of those episodes like have people like revealing more than you'd think they ever would on camera. And I don't know if they use the hot sauce, like if this is something strategic to get things out of them. But like one of
the host of that show will say, when you've got this heat you're trying to battle and you're trying to keep your composure on camera, it gets through some of those questions they'll actually answer because they can't think of the PR version of the answer.
Dude, when Austin Kutcher is asked about Diddy parties on this show, and he just like, you can see he's like he's so transparent. I can't do it justice. I don't remember exactly what he said, but there's a clip from this show where he's confronted about Diddy parties, like back when before this was all known or whatever, and it was like, oh dude, there's something.
And he's just being tortured. He can't even concentrate.
Yeah, no, it's like, they reveal a bit more, and it's a hot sauce thing. So I wonder if that connects, like if hot sauce is used almost like the CIA wanted to use LSD as a truth serum, you know, but they like use hot sauce, you know, because it like throws you off.
It burns both sides, right? Hot sauce burns you when it goes in and when it goes out. If you're comparing it to like hell and fire and the heat, like literally just symbolically, we're kind of in this world of poetic justice. And so everything is just like hidden in the terms that we use. But
that makes sense because there's 24 kids involved, right? Because of what the Bible said, David Koresh was trying to create 24 children. Or these represented the 24 elders that are in Revelation during the throne room scene on the Sea of Glass. The Lamb comes in and receives the book, and there's 24 elders. Now, David said that those were like a jury. There's 12 from the Old Testament and 12 from the New Testament. And that goes back to what, anytime you see what's in God's right hand is considered to be the Bible. So God's right hand is the Bible. That's why we put our hand in a court of law on the Bible. We put your right hand or whatever.
There's the red hand of judgment of God, right? That's the there's a song about that. Is that from Nick Cave or something?
The Peaky Blinders theme song.
So the 23 could represent the 24 kids that were killed and burned alive, because the kids were basically, it was a repeat of a child sacrifice, because it has to do with this festival, this Jewish festival in Leviticus 23, which is basically a stand-in for child sacrifice. Instead of killing 24 kids, you killed like 24 rams or lambs. You burn these lambs. And so it's messed up. You're talking about this hot sauce, but you're also talking about, you know, that amount of kids also being burned alive. And they are supposed to be the 24 elders that judge us because they were treated so bad by us, so to speak. Keep going down. I think it's the last festival.
It's Leviticus 23. Is it 23, Will?
It's 23 flavors, 24 kids, but I don't think.
Oh, okay.
But you're saying chapter 23 in Leviticus is where we see this? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's the festival. There's a festival in there. It's called it's called a wave sheaf. A wave sheaf is basically the only place where the wave sheaf happens is basically right here. It's called the offering of the first fruits. And in the Bible, a lot through the prophecies, the first fruits are also considered to be the first people who come back alive.
Sure.
So it's like the earth is considered to be a harvest, and we're all basically being grown, and then they're supposed to harvest and like separate the wheat from the chaff.
Well,
right?
It connects to in the Old Testament in Exodus or post Exodus, where the spies are sent by Moses into the promised land, and they come back with these massive grapes, right? So it's like that's the first fruits, and this was the festival of the first fruits,
whereas he is to wave the sheaf before the Lord, so it will be accepted on your behalf. The priest this is kind of a socialist idea where a certain amount of what you have was given to the priest and the individuals who couldn't work. Now
they gave it to the priest,
called
priest was
themselves
supposed to
the
break
wave
it.
chief. They're the ones who are supposed to be killed and then brought back first.
I've heard this described as the priests were like the social welfare bankers, that everyone's required to come and bring your offerings, and then that becomes the central like sort of depository where everyone puts all the offerings, and then they portion it amongst themselves for their own payment, and then they portion it off for all the needy. But they kind of become this de facto like bank, like they're the teller at the bank. When you need to go and get your rations, they're the ones that decide who gets which rations based on all the sacrifice that people gave.
You guys seen Yellow Jackets at all? You know the show?
The first two seasons, I think.
Yeah, this kind of, well, the third season too goes into it deeper, obviously, but the premise of this is communicated through Yellow Jackets, because basically what Yellow Jackets is kind of like Lord of the Flies, where they're showing like if you just take a group of people, throw them in the wilderness, especially like young people, and they're trying to process everything, they kind of gravitate towards these like ancient anthropological ideas, because there's something inherent in us in how to like, when it comes to survival instincts and just when we're like so in touch with nature, like we're up in nature and not separated from it like we tend to be when we live in these domiciles and everything is as such, that you'll gravitate towards these things, that there's a human mechanism, but then when they get back into society, season 3, you're kind of like, you start to have to question like, how much of this is actually like the way things are? Does this change anything? Like, because we're still one with the wilderness, right? Even if we're like living in regular society, you know what I mean? Like, we can't separate that. So I think that that's one of the things too, like about like, I'm sorry, it's a John F. Kennedy assassination, where you start, like, if you dig deeply enough into it, you start to recognize these patterns and these things that are so unexplainable, but they're just inherent. Like, you're like, where is the line between the patterns that exist everywhere in nature and our own supposedly chaotic goings on? And then you're like this was the basis, I think, of King Kill 33, right? Was like he was coming up against these points where he was like, this has to be more than coincidence, this has to be coordinated, but he's assuming a lot of the time that this is people doing this purposely. This is a conspiracy, but in any instance of in almost any example, you could make the argument that this is literally patterns that exist in nature that we can't escape from. Like, it's in our own goings on. And so this is the issue with like profound synchronicities sometimes, is that line can be a line in the sand and you can't always tell which is which. And if you really need to know, it can drive you freaking crazy, because you're like, is this coordinated? Is this a secret society, or is this patterns that exist in nature that we can't escape from? My argument would be like, ultimately it's going to be both. Now, that line between which, when we feel that we need to know, that's the point where you can go totally neurotic. You can go nuts.
David Koresh,
if you demand that, having that knowledge, because it's like, good luck, dude. Like,
David Koresh was showing the individuals movies that echoed the stories that he was trying to say.
Lawnmower Man. I don't know what's the other ones.
Oh, there's a lot of them. One of the only
played Lawnmower Man.
Yeah,
bro. He said he was Lawnmower Man. If you go back and look at Lawnmower Man, because he was talking about the book of Job a lot, and that was the guy's name in Lawnmower Man. His name is Job. And then he's basically augmented with technology, which is what David Koresh said happened to him. And he comes back and seeks revenge on all of those who basically punished him or whatever. But I know for a fact he also showed Terminator. I know that for a fact. And I have a whole big list of things that they probably would have watched. But he was using it like, and if you watch the series that it came out in 2009 or 2019, they mention Lawnmower Man like 4 times during the whole series. And at one point, the FBI guys are watching Lawnmower Man and they're like, I don't get it. But then I came up with the whole theory. I was like, wait, he was seeing syncs in the movie and he was showing it to them. And I had that confirmed. The thing is they say that those messages weren't from God. that those messages were inspired by the devil, because the devil counterfeits. Terminator, I know he showed there, and I also have him in the files explaining how time travel works. So there's certain concepts, and of course, we know the symbolism of Terminator. It's like intentionally meant to be like Jesus Christ, right? So
John Connor, is that what you're saying, or what?
yes. His name is John Connor intentionally. There's a lot of
JC.
symbolism that is intentional. What I'm saying is David was interpreting it in the same way we do. And in the same way that Dowdy, wasn't his name Dowdy? King Kill 33 was? What? Who's the guy who wrote King Kill 33?
Downer. What is it? James.
Goddamn.
I'm confused.
Robert Downer. Is James Shelby Downer.
James Shelby Downer. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, so the way he talks is very, it mentions synchronicity. So he's very inspirational to all synchro mystics. But that shit
he inspired my very first comic, by the way. The whole, I read his alleged memoirs, which was like Carnivals of Life and Death, and in that he talks about staying at Jekyll Island overnight with his mom, and that they were doing this like sex ritual in the middle of the foyer of like the Jekyll Island Hunt Club, and that Alexander Graham Bell was there, and they were like all running around naked, and they were like beating some guy called Cock Robin. It was like the most wild story. And that was basically the premise of my very first comic ever.
If you're looking at James Shelby Downer's King Kill 33, and then you look at Sinister Forces from our friend, what's his name?
Levenda?
Peter Levenda, is that in the introduction to Peter Levenda's Sinister Forces, to me, like, I feel like his communication around the Kleepboat and what he regards as the titular line of Sinister Forces, like, you can apply that it should almost, to me, it feels like if you read King Kill 33, you should have to read Sinister Forces, because Sinister Forces is so helpful in applying, like, the principles that he presents, Peter Levenda presents, are like really helpful to apply as a lens to approach King Kill 33. Not like it needs to be confined to that. It's hard to communicate all this, but like, they're both touching on something. But James Shelby Downer, I feel like, is a little bit crazier in his jump to conclusions, Matt. Like, he's like, let me tell you what it is, whereas Peter Levenda is really good at being like, it could be this, it could be that. He's almost like Scott Onstott in that way. Like, he doesn't have to jump to a conclusion, whereas James Shelby Downer does, which to me feels like a little, I don't know, like there's more fear there. You know what I mean? Like, he needs to put it, it's like what Alan Moore talked about that phenomenon where it's like the truth is so chaotic that people will actually go to the Illuminati or a conspiratorial place as a way to not have to face that, because it's scarier to have things be that chaotic, or
We're
that.
still in Texas.
Like,
you guys realize that like Dallas and Waco are within the same area.
yeah, I must have had me about 15 Dr. Peppers from Forrest Gump. Like, that's right before he meets John F. Kennedy, and he tells John F. Kennedy that he has to go pee because he drank 15 Dr. Peppers.
Or Waco.
Like,
he had 15 shots of Waco.
Who did this video? Was it you, Will, or was it Jake? The one where it's just like every time that freaking Tom Hanks urinates in a movie, and it's just like a continuous stream. Like, he pisses so much. He's the equivalent of like Jennifer Connelly.
I remember seeing that as Jake. There's like pictures of him pissing in like Castaway and
pictures, but yeah, I mean, there's a video out there of like one continuous literal stream of him urinating, because obviously the longest one I think that breaks the record is in A League of Their Own, where he's just like at the urinal just going and going and going and going. But it's just, he has a urinating thing. Like, it feels like it's like I say, it's like the Jennifer Connelly going to the end of a pier thing. Like, this can't be just the way things are. I don't know. I would
be like Kubrick always managed to have a bathroom.
I mean, it happens. Here's the thing. When we were having these arguments about what was relevant, I said, fuck this, and went straight to actors that are like D level actors or C level actors. The same syncs happen in their movies. And those things we think is irrelevant. But even then, like with Andras Jones has a lot of JFK symbolism that is in his movies. Like in one movie, he goes into the refrigerator and he looks at the expiration date, and it's like 11/23/01 or something like that.
Right.
Like it's the day that, like, it's the day he wakes up is the same day that JFK was killed. And another one in his scene in Saved by the Bell, before it was Saved by the Bell, it was called like Good Morning Miss something, I can't remember. It takes place in John F. Kennedy High School. Like, there's all of these weird syncs that happen with individuals who we don't necessarily think are famous, or, you know, they're not the Illuminati made movies. They're actually
right.
really
Well, are they? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what are we even talking about? Like,
because it's really easy. If you're talking about symbolism that happens in Transformers, it's really easy to understand that that's like a closed set. That there's a lot of money
was paid for by Israeli intelligence, largely.
Right. But Andras Jones' appearance in Sorority Babes in the Slime Ball Bolorama is not necessarily a high budget controlled flick.
It's like coming through the spirit, right? That's the inspiration. Everything happens in the spirit first before it comes into the physical.
That is a great way of putting it. Of course, the spirit is a religious term that people are kind of confused on its meaning.
What's the right answer?
Is it undefinable though? That's the thing. But spirit, like breath, like isn't it, like, if we're talking etymologically, like what are we saying?
Well, Koresh would say that spirit, when he was saying, if you look up into the space and you see the nebulas and stuff, you see that gas. He's like, that's spirit. And so his interpretation is that, like, the same form of thought or driven to a certain conclusion or a certain drive is what we call spirit. So, like, there's the spirit of, say, film, or there's the spirit of a rock star, or there's those things kind of follow the same trajectory, so to speak.
Yeah.
I got pulled up here. This is like my favorite thing to pull up on, like, the whole spirit and where ideas come from. This is like the Rosicrucian version.
Oh,
this
right,
is kind of like an oversimplification of the
I've seen this from Paul Foster case.
It's like a football bracket.
I want to talk about urine. I want to talk about like for real. It's not that dissimilar from snot, right? It's like when we think of urine, we think it's really gross, and when we think of snot, we think of it really, really gross, and rightfully so, because it's filled with toxins, right? But initially, like the essentially, like, what is going on is you have, in both cases of snot and urine, you have a very extremely pure substance that absorbs the toxins into itself to carry them out and release them. So, like, it's like, it feels kind of applicable, like if we're discussing like spirit, like, and we're discussing like the Klipo, which mimic tetragrammaton, right? So they mimic the dynamics of the Shefa, but they're not the Shefa. They're not the emanated divine flow essence, right? But they contort to give the appearance as though they were that, which is like the thing with like what you're saying about the Terminator thing and all this. It's like you have, or like even like what we could call the Antichrist, right? You have something that's imitating something else that is divine, but it's not really that. So it's a deceiver, right? That's like the meaning of Satan, right? It's like this deceptive force, a sinister force, right? So like sorry, there was this guy at a Beltane party one time who was telling a group of people that he was drinking his own urine, and he was talking about, the Chinese tradition around it, ancient tradition, and it's called, so I don't remember what he's saying, like the golden flow, the golden shower, whatever he's describing it. At a certain point while he was going off, I just straight up asked this guy, I was like, dude, you're not like drinking like yellow urine, are you? Like, you're pissing clear before you drink it, right? Like totally clear. And he like hesitated, and I could see that the guy just totally been drinking like his yellow urine. And I was just like, dude, like I was like, I'm not denying the health benefits of urine, but if you're not pissing clear, man, you're drinking toxins, bro. Like I was like,
creatine.
And he
But
was
that's what
like,
the golden-
it got
That's what the
so
Golden Dawn is,
insanely.
right? I've heard rumors that the whole point of the Golden Dawn being called the Golden Dawn is because their main thing was drinking their own pee.
Well, there's also the argument that there's an elixir that is referenced by various occultists through time, and even Albert Pike. Although Albert Pike is a weird one because, like, looking at Albert Pike's physique, it's hard for me to relate. Like, oh, he was fasting all the time. I don't get that impression, but okay, But there's this elixir that gets referenced, and it's actually a combination of vaginal excretion, like squirt, and semen, and like all of these, like, and possibly piss clear urine. Like, basically it's all body stuff. It's all things produced by the body in their purest form, right? So it's like and even it's not even his own. Like, he's like, it wouldn't be the occultist's own stuff. It's like coming from what would be the equivalent of like the Krishna's gopis. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like they're like it's coming from sex magic, right? So it's like they produce this stuff and then they give it to the master gets to drink this special elixir, of all these body excretions. And apparently, if you fast and only ingest this stuff, it's supposed to do some extreme health benefits for you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised,
Somebody associated it to, I think Michael Schott of Gosporn, an old early synchro mystic, had associated it to Mr. Fusion in Back to the Future. When he pours the can of beer in there into the can of fusion, he's talking about all of these weird syncs he had one time where that was like telling him to drink his pee.
He's brilliant. I met him a couple times. Where did he go? He should be a guest on the show, man. He was great. He went to the sync cabin with us in Idaho, and the whole time he wanted us to watch Hot Tub Time Machine. He like brought Hot Tub. He's like, we got to watch Hot Tub Time Machine. And at the time, I hadn't seen Hot Tub Time Machine. I didn't realize why we should have listened to this guy and all sat down together and watched Hot Tub Time Machine. We probably would have been miles ahead of where we ended up being.
You didn't, even though you brought this movie all the way to a sync cabin.
Right. What we ended up doing is I think Jason Barrero went out and we at least watched part of Singing in the Rain, but yeah, no, whatever.
Getting multiple sync heads together is like herding cats, though. They like watching movies or something. When we tried
I love going out to a cabin to watch a movie. I like it.
Well, I mean, we had a great time, but what happens when you do that, and what's really cool about like what happened in Olympia and what happened, like it has a crazy ripple effect. Like, it's profound. It really is profound. It feels
everybody
like,
notices it.
It's like Witches of Eastwick when they're like together and like the pavement cracks. You know what I mean? And they realize they're like, oh shit, there's like something about us coming together is like this really intense force. Something happens.
Were you in the car when you were with me, weren't you? Because I know that when I got to Olympia on one of those occasions, it was you and I meeting out front, waiting for our rides, and we had like a chance to sit and talk and stuff for a while.
Okay,
and then we had two cars ride up, and then one went with one group of people and another one with another group of people, but we got separated. I can't remember if I thought I was in the car with you because we were rolling a joint, but it got really weird because we were talking about Clue, and we were saying, well, we have Mr. Green right here.
Oh yeah.
And then right then a car passes, and then big bold letters it said Mrs. White, like on the back of the car.
I vaguely remember this. Yes, yeah.
And I like started freaking out, like,
oh, it's Mr. Green. Yeah,
they're on to us.
I started, the game is afoot. The game is afoot.
Yeah. Well, it's an attention thing too,
But we were talking about clues, so like syncs are clues, right? And we're going around, we're having all of these experiences.
Joe is one of the best for those, and Joe is kind of, his approach to sync is kind of similar to Anna Nicole here, because you both have this kind of like the language aspect of it. You're just very alert and picking up on things that after it's said, you're like, oh yeah, that was right there in plain sight, but.
Right. Saying it out loud. I like your post, Anna, just so you know.
Well, thank you. I didn't know you guys had like cabin in the woods sync get-togethers.
Oh, we've been doing this for over a decade. It's been about 15 years now, but there was only like maybe 4 sync events with varying people. 2 were in cabins.
But there's between the cabins and the
one in New York, 2 in Olympia.
It sounds so ominous. A sync event. It just sounds like...
Well, there's sync in the city too, and I didn't make it to that. There was one in New York, and then there was one in God, where was that? Was that San Francisco?
Near Boise, somewhere in Idaho or something, I think.
Yeah. Well, we had one that was,
That was
more
the
local for me, I think.
Let me know when the next one is.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Well,
the other ones were crowdfunded. I don't think anybody's got any plans because after about 2016, like after the first Trump presidency,
yeah.
everything kind of fell to shit.
Yeah. Feels like politics screwed us up.
Summer of hate, but
yeah,
There
it was
like
a lot to do with
Biden
Red Ice.
supporters?
Like we were coming up strong, and then the Red Ice thing happened, where Alan made some executive decisions, and I really don't blame him, because it was like we did this huge interview with Red Ice. For us, it was huge, and we started selling a lot of books and everything. And then right after that, like within a month, 3 weeks or something, they came out with that 6+ hour Hitler apologist documentary. And Alan was just like, pull out, and
well, I mean, I had friends. I was trying to get people were getting way into sync because it was having a following. And then when they're like, bro, I went and looked at Red Ice. What the hell are you sending me to? Like, you guys are Nazis now.
Yeah, we got all attached to it right before that happened, and it sucked. Yeah. Oh well.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is what like Polanski felt like after he moved away from his house a little bit.
Probably. Yeah. I just saw something about what was it? David Lynch. David Lynch's daughter just said that David Lynch really regretted ever defending Polanski, and I was like, I didn't even know that he defended Polanski. What does that even mean?
There was a letter. There was a letter that went around that was like it was a Hollywood version of a change.org petition. It was like, look at all these famous people that all think that he got a raw shake of this whole entire event, I guess. And the daughter was basically saying that her dad, David Lynch, just saw like, whoa, if everyone else is signing it that I know, why wouldn't I sign this for this guy?
Right.
But he didn't look into it. I don't know. I read the same article you're talking about.
Yeah, there's the Polanski's current wife, Emmanuel Signer. She sent a letter to the Academy, like an open letter, when they asked her to join the Me Too movement, and it's a great letter. Like, you have to read it. Like, you can't just like be like, oh, she had,
ChatGPT summarize this for me.
Right, you can't do that. You have to read what she actually had to say, because it's pretty heavy duty, because she basically doesn't excuse what her husband had done. It's very similar to Geimer's, like his victim's words on the matter in her book, The Girl. Like, it's like there's two things happening at once. There's what you did is awful, and then there's the and, not the but. And then all the and stuff they don't want to look at because it creates so much cognitive dissonance for them, because of the stuff that goes on in Hollywood to this day, that somehow all these people get a pass, and like just who everyone else involved in everything that's happening. So she's basically like, they were asking her to join the Me Too movement, and she was like, you gave my husband a standing ovation for The Pianist, and now you want to say, like, make up your mind already, like, where are we at? And like, at which point do you say something is wrong that somebody did, and what is the bigger picture, and like he basically gets, as long as he's the most evil thing, all these other people continue to go about their business doing whatever they do in Hollywood. Like, there's something really manipulative about how everything went down with him, like, it's like, two things can be true at once. You can have somebody's totally guilty of this thing that they did, and look at the scene, like what has been happening here for so long. Are we just gonna not like address, like, for someone like her, she must know things that most people don't know. She must know about that tunnel from that house where the hot tub time machine incident happened at Jack Nicholson's house, the tunnel from there to the Playboy Mansion, and the goings on of Jack Nicholson that like the Kubrick's driver went off about, and all these things. It's like, dude, I don't ever hear anybody talking about how terrible Jack Nicholson is, when it looks like this thing that we go crazy about with Polanski has been like a common occurrence for him throughout his career. Like, it's just crazy, like, I don't know. There's always something about that and versus that but, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you say something and you're like, but, like, you're excusing the thing, versus like this is true.
That's NLP. Yeah, NLP rules is that the but negates everything that comes before the and.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're not even allowed. This is how the culture war shit works. It's like you're not even allowed to have a real conversation because as soon as you want to address another side of something, you're seen as excusing something. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, well, let me just go and this, say something on top of that. It's like, no, stop right there. This is unexcusable. It's like, okay, you can't have a freaking. I defend Polanski. I don't defend. I don't defend what happened with Samantha Geimer, and neither does Samantha Geimer. But I will say, listen to the victim and what she has to say, because one of the things that she's emphasized, even on like Larry King, like years ago, repeatedly, and in her book, is that what the media did to her in her experience, in her personal experience, is worse than what Polanski did. What Polanski did was awful. There's no question. There's no equivocation about that. And what the media did was even worse. So like, listen to her. Like, that's the thing. It's like people talk about trans issues. It's like, listen to the detransitioners. If you're going to like shut them out, are you really helping are you helping? Like, it's like, you want to be helpful, supposedly. Like, like all these people,
What's funny, it's ironic about that particular one, because then it's like, well, that's such a small fraction of the community. It's like such a fractal, like a understanding how it works is fractal, but like everyone's trapped within their little scope of that fractal. It's like,
they say
well,
that. What's the basis for that? There's fake like show me the statistics that show how rare a detransitioner is. Like, it seems like every day there's more and more and more. Like, I don't know what your algorithm is like, but like like as far as Twitter goes or something, but I see a hell of a lot of them, and I see more and more all the time, and I listen to them. I like to listen to all sides of an argument so I can make my own assessment of what's what, and they share their experience and how they were welcomed with open arms when they decided to transition, and then they were shunned like they're a goddamn unicorn. They don't exist. I was going to say they're like a unicorn, but they're in the sense that they're not. They're treated like they don't matter anymore on the other side. So they just get like pushed away, repressed, when they were like, oh, come on, please join our movement. It's like
but there's no such thing as it's the same thing with a new religion that gets founded, right? All of the followers have to be zealots. You can't have followers that get second thoughts. They have to be suppressed, because no religion in history has ever grown unless it was all being headed by zealots. So it's almost a requirement in order for these things to even last for more than a decade or two.
Do you think that this trans thing was like, in terms of religion, do you think it was like a covert way to bring in a new class of eunuchs? Like, if we're going back to the ancient times?
Yeah, the sacred eunuch, the symbolism around the sacred eunuch, if you go and you dig into that and then you apply it to what's being communicated today, it feels like, yeah, exactly. It's like there's a whole religion around the thing. Almost all these things you can find the religious aspects, and also that's true for the sacrament of the vaccination too, and the ostracizing of anybody who doesn't accept the sacrament. Like, this is why, like, I'm so fascinated with things like the Golden Bough, is because you can find these ancient anthropological phenomenon, and then you see how they're applied today, and you're like, dude, it's freaking the dead president's corpse in the driver's car. Like, we're doing the same thing that we did way back when, but we don't recognize it because
it's so far long ago that no one remembers it, but there's nothing new under the sun, and so it just keeps going around in cycles.
Totally.
Just like the Polanski thing, right? Like the one guy that gets scapegoated to represent all the other guys. You mean like ancient Greece and ancient Rome and every other ancient time we've got stories from that all have pretty much identical sort of scenarios going on, where like you have the elite class.
Where did he flee? Paris? Is that where he went?
He went to France.
But there's been footage of him like
in Paris. I think he lives in Paris now. Yeah, and Samantha Geimer visited him a couple years ago, and there's a great picture of them like together smiling, and it just feels like I haven't done it, but I kind of wanted to frame it, because I'm just like, wow, what a picture, man. In the midst of everything, like shit.
But haven't there been photos of him in like Rodeo Drive too?
What, Polanski post?
Polanski in the States on Rodeo Drive, post being extradited. No, am I just making something up?
No, I don't think that's true. Yeah,
his name's literally Roman, right? Like, if we're thinking back on Roman times, or the
Well, he hung out with Kubrick before everything went down, and like they watched Fearless Vampire Killers together, there's like this, and even like Tess and Barry Lyndon have such a heavy level of correspondence. It feels like there's some crazy connection there. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Kubrick didn't get exiled. Kubrick wasn't forced to run away. Yet he said to Spielberg many times, Hollywood is Sin City. He wanted nothing to do with it, right? Quote unquote Sin City. And he never returned. Kubrick never returned. He might as well have been Polanski without being forced out. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, went to England and just never came back.
I was talking to someone recently who said that she used to live in Hollywood, and one of her friends had called her one day and told her, like, I went to a necrophilia party last night. And she
Who did you say? I'm sorry.
I was just talking to some woman that I met at a networking.
What was her name, Anna? Don't hide. Don't.
Oh, no.
her.
I thought you were talking about an actress or something. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Sorry.
No, it wasn't anyone famous or whatever. She was telling me about a friend that she had that was like, I just came back from a necrophilia party, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, it never occurred to me. And she said that, that he had told her, I guess they pay like a certain rate depending on like a warm or a cold body. And then after hours, they like go in and have like a fuck fest with the corpses.
Yeah. I hold unpopular views. I believe that in all likelihood, Marina Abramovic is just trolling to the max and trying to expose the stuff that goes on by encouraging these celebrities to take part in like these fake versions of what actually happens, so that they can basically, because she can't just like catch them on camera at the thing that actually takes place. And so she's like, I'll put on the mock event of the thing, and to bring light to it. She's like, here, pose next to this, painting of Lucifer, Mr. Rockefeller, like, or Rothschild. Was it Rothschild? Yeah.
It was Rothschild. Yeah.
Yeah, Rothschild. Yeah, and it's just like, here, like, that's like, if that was your angle, like you wanted to expose things, like that's a very smart way to go about it, right?
And to fleece people out of their money, especially elites. And on that note, if anyone ever offers you the warm body at a necrophilia, you don't pay extra for warm, because they probably just put it in a microwave.
Ew.
That's a good point.
So gross.
Yeah, they got huge microwaves, those people.
Boy, the inside is really warm.
Oh, I feel bad on the outside. Sorry, are we doing Empire Strikes Back references here? Excuse me.
Great, man. Great. Just ruin Empire Strikes Back. So, okay, if you don't mind, I want to go back to the King Kill 33, because I was trying to look it up for the longest time and I can't find. Wasn't there a song, like a Marilyn Manson song or something like that?
Yeah, it's on Hollywood, which syncs with Jodorowsky's Holy Mountain.
Unholywood, because he also did a song called King Kill 33.
That's what I'm saying. That song is on Hollywood. It's towards the end, I think. Yeah.
Oh no, but I thought I heard one that talked about like Jack Ruby and the Ruby Slippers and Oz and Oswald. Wasn't there something like that put to music or something like that?
Well, I mean, there's different.
Maybe it wasn't Marilyn Manson, but.
Well, on that album, he has like, the John Lennon thing of nothing's going to change the world instead of my world, and has like, there was Lennon in Happy Gun, there was Blood on the Pavement, we were looking for the Lamb of God, we were looking for Mark David, and then that ties in with like that is a communication around the whole scapegoat ritual. And then King Kill 33, this song here, also communicates the same phenomenon, relating it to like John Kennedy. Yeah.
I was just looking for the actual things that were said about the connections between the Wizard of Oz and the assassination of JFK.
If you want, there's a website. Oh, I forget how to say it. It starts with an N, Nakarat or something. There's like a great website on the esoteric communications throughout Marilyn Manson's whole career, and a lot of it goes into the significance of King Kill 33 and how Marilyn Manson related to it, which isn't exclusive to Marilyn Manson by a long shot.
What's it called? The Nakarat?
Yeah, is that what it is? Yeah, thank you. The Nakarat.
No, I'm asking you.
I think that is what it's called, something like that. Yeah, if that's not what it is, it's something very close. But yeah, I don't know if I would assume it's still up, but yeah, it's a really solid empirical website that just goes through his whole artistic career, and there's stuff in there that would really interest you, like having to do with the Trinity test and like these different significant locations as they relate to not necessarily ley lines, but like just like, you know, power centers and stuff. And Marilyn Manson's interest in them. Yeah, it's pretty trippy.
The Trinity site took place in the Journey of Death. Did you ever know that? It's called like the Jordo de Muerte.
Oh, huh. The Death Valley thing is great. Like Hollywood was recorded at the hideout of the Manson family, the place that they were going to go when everything went down, you know, like when the race war happened, everything, they're going to go to this spot. Because his first album, Portrait of an American Family, was recorded at the exact same location as the Downward Spiral from Trent Reznor, which was, they set up the studio around the exact spot in the house where Sharon Tate was killed. So like where Sharon Tate's body was found, they recorded the Downward Spiral and they recorded Portrait of an American Family. And then from there, Marilyn Manson went on to record at the Manson family hideout.
Was that supposed to be Jack Kennedy in that last picture that you just showed?
I believe so.
That was a painting by Marilyn Manson of JFK. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did it have to do with the Trinity site? Because the Trinity test was at 5:29 a.m., which wasn't that Kennedy's birthday?
No, there was a test. I don't know how to find this information, but I've seen it multiple times. When everything shut down in the government after the assassination of JFK, at the exact same time, there's an actual nuclear test that happens, but it's not called the Trinity one. I think its code name was the Greys, because somebody had associated it to the fact that the Greys Almanac shows up. There's a lot of weird.
It was Joe.
JF Kennedy Drive and
Joe has a video on it, along with the Back to the Future predicts 9/11. There's another video on the Greys connection with the nuclear thing and the JFK assassination.
Right.
Yeah.
So and there's some other things in linking to something that had to do with nuclear bombs, something that Kennedy was doing with nuclear bombs, and how that involves like the alien race of the Greys and all this weird shit. I don't know exactly how all of that goes, though.
What website are we looking at there? What is that, Thomas?
This is just an article about Trent Reznor renting the Cicero Drive where Sharon Tate died to record Downward Spiral. And I guess when asked about it, claimed that he didn't realize that this was the Tate murder scene, which seems unlikely.
Yeah, I've seen several quotes from him where he overtly
long claimed no past
thing.
knowledge of the house and gory history when he first saw it, only realizing it was a Manson murder house after he had signed the rental deal.
Yeah, it's bullshit. And he took with him the door that had pig written on it in blood, and he used that as the door for his recording studio that got taken out with the floods in New Orleans. So like,
do you know, is this the Le Pig studio setup? Did they call it Le Pig before the murders, or is this something that got applied after the murders? That would be like a weird coincidence, no?
What do you mean after the murder? This is 1968 when was Trent Reznor born? I don't know what.
No, I know, but this is a photo of the actual
recording.
I guess this is
Reznor.
Trent Reznor's recording studio.
Yes,
that he sets up. Okay, he names it Le Pig.
This was always the accusation of this, kind of superficial, but the accusation of Trent Reznor was that, oh man, you'd be nothing without your big fancy studio. Like your albums wouldn't be like this, you know, because there's the production level of Nine Inch Nails is insane, right? And so when he lost his New Orleans studio, which was said to be like the greatest recording studio in the world, you know, he started from scratch to do Year Zero, which, you know, is a phenomenal album. And he did it with like just, you know, hardly anywhere near the equipment. It's so basic compared to everything that he had once upon a time.
Did he lose it in Katrina?
Yeah, I think it was Katrina. He lost it in, it got flooded away. But like, I have a weird personal sync thing there, because I play the Downward Spiral with Titanic, and there's a phenomenal happening there. Like if you look on the website, it's pretty mind-blowing. But like I I treat it that like, I trip out on the door that Jack and what's her name, Rose, are like she survives on the door and then he drowns, and like the way that he lost the door in the flood, like the water took the pig door with it. So it's like, I don't know, I have like a personal weird trip out.
Doors are like portals, right? Those are symbolically
The
sure.
doors, yeah,
The door to heaven.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
a good
thing.
point.
And then Jay Sebring was Jim Morrison's hairdresser, right? And he died with Sharon Tate at the same time. And there's a quote from Jim Morrison where he says some of the worst decisions in my life were haircuts. And like he right shortly thereafter, after his hairstylist of his whole career had since to become famous, had died, he got a bad haircut. Like, and you can see it, like he did this performance where his hair is like too short because they had to keep cutting back because they just screwed it up. So screwed up his haircut, and then he never got another haircut. And like he moved to France, right? And his hair just kept on growing. He grew out the beard, and he gained all this weight. And it's like in some weird way, it's like, dude, did Jay Sebring dying make it so that he just gave up on his hair, which is like, it's like a Samson Delilah thing. It's like he lost his hairstylist, and now it's just, this is the end of him, So when he says some of the worst decisions in my life were haircuts, it's almost like, is that literally like, is that not just like a joke? Like he really meant that, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
I've been trying to figure out like what the symbolism of like the haircut is in this matrix, because I mean, hairdressers have a reputation for being crazy and like.
Right. Well, there's the Withnail and I thing of like, all hairdressers are in the employment of the government because your hair are your odes that connect you to the cosmos. That's why bald men are so uptight. No offense, Thomas.
Plenty.
You got a lot of hair. You got a lot of hair though. So your facial hair still counts as your ode. So you're still
okay. I appreciate you give me an out.
Yeah. What is this Puff Daddy here? What are we looking at? 9 Inch Nails wiki? Why Puff Daddy? What happened? Oh, he recorded there.
It was called Nothing Studios in New Orleans, and apparently it was not significantly damaged during Katrina. So he just.
Oh, I thought he said he lost everything. Why did I hear that? Am I spreading lies?
He didn't lose everything. They just decided to move west after Katrina happened, and he described it as like the city was nothing like he was used to, and used that as a reason to leave. But he did not get a flood.
The reason why I'm saying what the reason I said what I said is and maybe this was false, but I read that he lost the pig door in the flood, and so I assumed that if he lost his door, I mean, this is my own jump to conclusions, Matt, that he lost the studio. Like you'd think that losing the door would be connected with the whole studio, like the door floated away. Is that maybe that was just?
He wouldn't have been living in the studio. He could have lost his house and the door been in the house. I don't know.
Have you noticed that like America is shaped like a pig too?
Thank you. What do we got?
As a sync, Alan Avedessa just texted me. He told me to tell you hi, David.
Oh, what's that? I'm sorry. Alan messaged you?
Yeah, while we were on the show, he was like, I'll call you in 30 minutes. I just told him I was like doing a sync show with you. And he was like, well, tell David I said hi.
Oh, hi, Alan. Good to hear from you. Yeah, we should do like an always record pretty soon with Alan. It's way overdue.
I don't know if he would. I mean,
here you go. 2 years ago, David, Manson murder door goes up for auction.
Right, but there was a debate on whether or not it was the real door or something. Wasn't this like people were looking at photos back and forth? I saw this article, and people compared the photos of this door that's up for auction with the photos of Polanski sitting in front of the door with his head down when it had pig written on it. That's a crazy photo that's kind of hard to find, but it's real.
A lot of locked, man.
But yeah, there's an argument. This might not be the real door. What's that? I'm sorry.
I said there's the 128 code again.
Oh yeah, it sold for 128,000.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe they changed the door over time. What was the deal? Yeah, it's weird because the door doesn't match. So I guess some changes were made to it. I don't know what the deal is.
Right here, Reznor moved out of the home in December 1993, taking with him the front door as a souvenir, later installing it at the front of Nothing Studios, where it remained until the property was abandoned.
Okay.
And now apparently Nothing Studios is offices.
Okay.
So he did lose it because he left it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you bring that with you though? Especially so what, it gets abandoned and then someone just picks it up and sells it for 128 grand. I feel like we're missing a huge chunk here from the story.
Right. Like
the provenance,
like,
right?
Did
The provenance
door
is
really
what?
just float away, and then somebody just like got like a replica door and sold it for all this money as a giant scam? I don't know. There's another place where you can look at you can compare photos of this door to the actual door in front of the house, and I'm repeating myself, but yeah, it's questionable
Look,
whether or not this
the
is legit.
estimate for this auction was 2,000 to 4,000 to get rid of this door.
Whatever. Yeah, no, the door is everything. Yeah, that's for
everything.
the collector of Helter Skelter memorabilia. You can't really get beyond like the door unless you got like the wall cut out that said like "Death to Pigs" or whatever.
2023 was the date on that when it was sold.
Correct. Yeah.
That is like such a like bad energy. Like who does? What kind of sick world is this where people like revel in that type of
right
purchase?
Well, you know, like if you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is a fantastic, it's my
I actually
favorite.
just saw that this week for the first time ever.
For the first time ever? Oh wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't emphasize more. The most significant scene in that entire movie is when, in my view,
the flamethrower in the pool, right? Flamethrower in the pool.
There's every with beyond like Cliff and the Leonardo DiCaprio's character and Brad Pitt's character, like beyond them, like you're looking at a very accurate portrayal of the timeline and the particulars, right? So there's the door, but
it says here
in front of
it says right here that a doctor scooped the property in 2012, but took the front door out of the trash when he discovered its historical significance. So here was the guy, I guess, that came and found it in the trash. So
He's like,
Trent Reznor goes out of his way, get the door, install it in his home, set up a studio at Le Pig Studio, take the door with him to New Orleans, and then just leave it there and not even tell anyone, oh, by the way, this is like the Tate murder door. It's so weird to take it out of California and then put it in New Orleans and then go back to California without the door.
Right.
Okay, so I just had this thought. There's a door situation with Waco too, and I hate to go back there, but I'm going to keep pushing Waco.
Go ahead.
So, okay, what I was talking about, the dogs, at the very beginning, they come up in 2 horse trailers. The ATF arrive, and these makeshift horse trailers, both loaded down with ATF agents who come out hollering at each other like football players. David, already knowing that they're going to come and be there, steps out the front door and says, guys, there's women and kids here. Can't we talk about this? The first shots fired are for the pack of like Alaskan Malamutes that are on the side of the building. There was a mother and a daddy and a whole bunch of babies, and they killed the mom and father. Now that's like ATF, I guess, standard procedures to go for the dogs so they don't get in the way later. So 2 soldiers went over, shot the dogs. And the film that I was talking about, when the ATF put out a film of what happened, they don't show them shooting the dogs. They show them going up to the dogs and using a fire extinguisher on the dogs, which doesn't make any sense, but it's just so that they don't look bad for actually having killed the animal. Now, when those shots of the dogs go off, some of the ones who are going towards David misinterpret the fact that there's already been shots fired, and they open fire on him. They kill his father-in-law right away. He says that it sounds like popcorn hitting the door. There's 2 metal doors at the front of Waco, and one's littered with bullets from the outside. Now, this door comes up missing during the trial because they said that the government says that it melted. They have one door, they can't find it, they finally find it, but it's not the one with the bullets.
It melted with the steel beams of 9/11.
Melted with the steel beams at Waco.
There was nanothermite at Waco. You heard it here first.
Right. You heard it here first.
There's pictures, although I can't find them. There's pictures of U-Hauls that are there on Ground Zero after Waco Ground Zero. And they're speculating during trial that the doors were loaded onto the U-Hauls.
Yeah.
Missing
Thomas,
Doors.
So you just watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for the first time. Me and Will have a video talk. I think it was like 2 or 3 hours talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Lana Del Rey's album Norman fucking Rockwell, which is crazy. But I was gonna say that the most significant scene that I can see in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in my view, is the point, because it's called Once Upon a Time, right? So you're not looking at the reality of what happened, but you are, for the most part, up until a specific point. That specific point where it really changes, where it goes in this is not what happened, it went in an alternate reality direction, alternate timeline, is when they're in the car, when Tex Watson looks back at Susan Atkins and those in the car and says what Manson told us to do, to kill everybody. And then he says, he said this, right? Or you're not calling me a liar, are you? And like the way that he communicates, like to put it their way, to say, because it comes down to this thing, because he's really talking to the public, because the only people whose word we have to go on what Manson said to do, or even all the stuff that should have, come up in court when we're looking at the particulars of the case, would these people who murdered these people go so far as to lie? Like, we're taking the word of Tex Watson. This is what Quentin Tarantino is like communicating to us. Our understanding of what happened with Helter Skelter, their basis for doing what they're doing, is based on the word of the murderer, the guy, like the main instigator of the murders, who's more of an instigator than Susan Atkins. Tex Watson is the man. And also there's this thing where it's like, dude, this guy was living in a cult-like community where Manson is sleeping with all the girls, and this is a man. You know what I mean? Like, how did he feel about that? Do you think that maybe he experienced some jealousy or had some issues come up around that, of him being the cult leader? Do you think maybe there was some element of competitiveness? Like, there's so many questions to ask as to what the dynamic of that group of people was, and like who he was. Like, it's the most understated aspect of the whole thing, in my view, is what was Tex Watson's motive? Did he have a motive? Like, we're talking about motives, right? When you're looking at murders, like, what was the motive? Like, they came back and they told Manson what they had done for him. Susan is like, hey, we just did this. And his explanation, which this is one of those places where I can't help but kind of assume that Manson is being honest, is he said, you dumb cunt, now I got to go back to prison. Now I'm going to have to go back to prison. Like, he did not, in his communication, he claims he did not ask them to do this. He said, if you're going to do something vague, going to do something, leave something witchy. And in that scene of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he says, you heard him, he said, kill everyone and leave something witchy. Like,
well, he also, in that movie, I noticed he said, I don't know what verbatim, but it was like, this is the old Tate house, as in they knew that that Polanski had already left here, or sorry, the record producer, that this was like the old record producer's house, that he used to live there, because one of the stories of Manson was that he was scorned from getting screwed over by the Beach Boys song, and that he sent someone there to kind of make things right. And then there was another version of it had something to do with like the Tracy Twyman take, right? Is that they were involved with some kind of bad heroin dealing, and that he was getting wrapped up in something, and that was also retribution for putting bunk stuff out that like came back on him.
Right.
But in the movie, they make it seem as though it was calculated. It was that
in the movie,
knew that the record producer no longer lived there.
They show this is a fact, that Manson showed up at the house. The only time that he ever interacted with Sharon Tate was through the intermediary. They show it being that he communicated with Jay Sebring. That Jay Sebring answers the door to Manson walking up. And in this scene, you have Brad Pitt's up on the roof next door, and he's looking over at this guy showing up, and goes to the door. But it wasn't actually Jay Sebring. It was that other blonde guy. I forget his name, but he was in a bunch of Polanski films, including Cul-de-sac, and he was the fourth wheel in the relationship with Sharon Tate. So you had I always forget this guy's name, but he's an actor who left Hollywood, left the movie industry altogether because he was so devastated over the death of Sharon. So it was kind of like a act of respect for Tarantino not to include him at all in the movie, even though he was there. But yes, that Manson showed up at the house looking for Terry. He was informed that Terry no longer
Richard
lives there.
Damer or Philippe Fourquet?
Neither of
Okay.
those. I don't think. Unless if you want to show on the screen, he's a super blonde, like almost like Greek looking guy. You know, he's like looked like a statue. This dude.
Donald Pleasance again, and cul-de-sac.
Donald Pleasance is in cul-de-sac. Keep looking at the names in cul-de-sac. See if you see a blonde guy who looks like a Ken doll. No pun intended with, or whatever you want to call it, with Margot Robbie playing Sharon Tate and also playing Barbie. But
David Hemmings.
Yeah, that might be. Look, show me. You got the. Let me look. Is that him now? Yeah, that might be what he looks like later. But I'm not you. Yeah. That's him. He's in Eye of the Devil also.
Well, so isn't Pleasance in Eye of the Devil?
Yeah, they both are. They're both in Eye of the Devil. Yes, with Sharon. That's
Pleasance is in everything, dude.
It's crazy that like Sharon Tate's first film has the alternate title of 13, right? Because it's about the 12 disciples and Jesus being the 13th, and that's a Golden Bough movie, by the way, Eye of the Devil. That was alternatively titled 13. Her last movie is called 13 Chairs, alternatively titled 12 plus 1. How is it that Sharon Tate's entire film career is bookended by one film called 13 and another film called 12 plus 1?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's pretty vibrant, if you ask me.
Yeah, but no, that was I'm just saying, like that actor, he wanted to be completely left alone. He was just so distraught. I mean, he was traumatized, which is understandable. It's like anybody who was connected to that was traumatized by it, including, talking about With Nail and I, Andrea Galler had moved to on that street to live in Hollywood. So the woman, if you ever seen With Nail and I, the woman who designed the coat for With Nail and I, she moved to that street in the 1960s and, became relatively close with Sharon and Roman. And then that happened, and she just never wanted to go back to the United States. I think she may have been in what would be the house that they have Leonardo DiCaprio's character living at, which is kind of crazy. But yeah. When I first met her, she asked me what I thought. Like, oh, I shouldn't share all this. Never mind. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. But yeah, it's basically I can say it. She asked me what do you think of Manson. I won't say the reason, everything as to why that came up. But she asked me what I thought of Charlie Manson, and I said, Charlie, not a good guy, but that motherfucker ain't got nothing on Dick Cheney. And she looked at me and she said, well, I can't argue with that. And this is before I knew that she lived on that street when that happened and was close with the people involved. So for me, like, having people be offended at times throughout, my adult life at my views on Helter Skelter and all of that, I'm like, dude, a friend of Sharon's said she couldn't argue with, Manson having nothing on Dick Cheney. So I can take that with me and be like, okay, no, I think I'm okay.
I get to keep that.
Another weird thing about the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that I was surprised didn't even make it, but that they've got Bruce Lee in that movie a few times, and they clearly have Sharon Tate, and Sharon Tate and Bruce Lee apparently were friends, and like he taught her martial arts and stuff, but they never even touch on that. Why even have Bruce Lee? Do they?
They indicate it in a few places. So yeah, you'll notice that in the first place, while we're looking at Bruce Lee, that whole scene is a flashback, right? So as from Brad Pitt's character's perspective. So he says this guy's the Green Hornet guy is the reason why you're not going to come onto the set. And then he does a flashback because he was the Green Hornet guy, Bruce Lee. But yeah, he was training her for Breaking the Waves. So like because she had to learn some degree of martial arts, but he was at the house all the time. And Bruce Lee, was Roman's first guess of who had killed Sharon. And Tarantino.
Really?
This is a movie that's
looks like
made for Roman. So Roman Polanski did not know that this movie was being made. And when he found out, he called up Tarantino and was like, I hear you're making a movie about my wife. And then Tarantino says, you won't be upset. Like, this is okay. This is okay. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to trust you. And then Polanski ended up really liking the movie, but there's certain communications in the movie that are specific for Roman, and if you know, you know. So there was a pair of
tell, man.
there was a pair of sunglasses that Roman had gifted Bruce Lee, and in the evidence that they found on the scene after her death was this pair of sunglasses. And so Polanski had requested after the murder for them to test the prescription of these glasses, because they weren't just sunglasses, they were prescription sunglasses. And so Polanski wanted to know if the prescription matched Bruce Lee's. So he basically had them run a test on the sunglasses to see if that was the case. Why did he think that it was Bruce Lee? Because he saw how horrific the murder was and who could be physically capable of it. And he was like, well, Bruce Lee's there all the time. He could, not that he saw Bruce Lee as somebody who was vindictive enough or evil in that way, but that he was physically capable of doing something that horrendous, And so he was his first personal suspect. And so that opens the door for Tarantino to be the first one in history, as far as I know, to rip on Bruce Lee in a negative way, was because that Polanski would suspect him at all. So it becomes this kind of inside joke, of what if we just portray Bruce Lee as this asshole? What trips me out, I have a view of Bruce Lee that most people don't have from what I've gathered, because, he was so astute, understatement, right? He'd sit up straight. He's a martial arts master, right? And then you see this interview during Enter the Dragon, where it's his first time in America, and he is so slouched, and he's got this giant collar, and every word out of his mouth is man. And I'm just like, what happens? This is my speculation. What happens with somebody who's that pure, right? Who's that well taken care of, if they do cocaine? Look at Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon when he does that crazy squirrely, his eyes are all bugging. I'm like, dude, if you gave that guy an 8-ball, I would see him as having a heart attack more likely than somebody like John Belushi, at least at the first, you know what I'm saying? He's just he's probably so sensitive. I'm just and what would he even do? If you give that guy cocaine, So I was like, did he take coke? And if he did, are we not getting and also the incentive to cover up something like that with Bruce Lee would be really strong, because he has devoted followers. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I've totally entertained the possibility that he just died of a drug overdose and they had to cover it up.
Well, that's the official story now, is that he took a painkiller, but it wasn't that it was an overdose. It was that it affected, he was I want to say allergic, but he had an adverse reaction to one of the ingredients in this painkiller that he was taking. Although I've heard so many different variations on this, that he got into
that was
a bar fight, and that someone punched him in the stomach. Essentially, the official autopsy claims that his kidney was unable to excrete water, and he ended up dying due to that combination with the painkiller, combination with heat stroke.
Right. What I heard was that he had taken his sweat glands out.
What?
Yes, I heard that Bruce Lee had taken his.
Is it like a Marilyn Manson took his rib out kind of rumor?
because he didn't want to sweat on camera.
I heard Prince Andrew did this too.
Is that relating to the pig thing? Because pigs don't sweat? Is that the connection?
Ooh, interesting. That's a really good connection, David.
I don't know, man. Oh my God.
I forgot about that fact.
I raised a pig, and my pig's name was Toby. It was a super sweet pig, and it died in Idaho. So it grew up in California, under shade, underneath big oak trees, and it was really hot in Idaho. It took a few years, but because pigs don't sweat, that change is likely what killed them. They can live to be 30 something years old. I think even 40 or something. They could live a long life, a pig, longer than dogs. They're much smarter than dogs, I'll tell you that. They defecate as far from where they sleep and eat as they possibly can. And they only do that in one spot. You know what I mean? They're dude, that alone shows that they're more intelligent in my view. But yeah, no, anyway, it couldn't sweat, and I think it died of heat exhaustion. because it got so hot in the summers in Idaho. Yeah, but
Okay, Bruce Lee had his sweat glands removed from his armpits in 1972, reportedly to achieve a sweat-free appearance on camera during film.
Oh, that's
That's why he had
heat
heat stroke, because that's where
Where
they
you got
say.
that? I'm gonna need to cite source.
That's so weird. Like, isn't Bruce Lee known for his water quote? Like, be like water.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Be water, my friends, but
Yeah.
don't excrete it.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you getting? Where are you reading that from?
Well,
There's
I've got the truth here. I don't want to deal with Will's lies. We've got Snopes to tell us what's true. Is there any over and under on whether or not Snopes says this is true or false?
What did we say?
I hate Snoop. They'll say it's false. Let's see.
Rumors
Oh,
still
they don't even make a call on it.
They don't make a call, really?
They don't even make a call. It's just about.
Oh,
The experts were so focused on what happened on July 20th. Go down just a little. They failed to.
Oh, right here. Lee had an operation to remove the sweat glands from his armpits because he thought dank pits looked bad on screen. This reduced his body's ability to dissipate heat.
that's crazy. Is that the pig connection? Is that what we're looking at? Is that what it's really about? Because the official, if you watch a documentary, like especially the recent ones on the murders, they're almost always going to say that the pig thing was just about them trying to pin it on the Black Panther Party.
It's a blind. It happens in like the first book of. I know this because it's tied to the Jack the Ripper murders. So in Sherlock Holmes, like the first book of Sherlock Holmes, somebody misdirects by writing on the wall the person that has nothing to do with it. You know what I'm saying? And that happens with Jack the Ripper too. Somebody writes something about the Jews, but it's written in this way that has to do with Freemasons. And so it's a blind. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's a thing that they picked up from the Jack the Ripper murders. In my opinion, the Manson family was using it to make, like you said, put witchy stuff out there or whatever. Like,
right, but what I'm saying is that they'll say that specifically pig is because it's terminology used by the Black Panther Party, and so that's the argument there. And then
right,
you're like,
and so that happens in Jack the Ripper. Somebody uses terminology by the Freemasons, and then that's used again as, I think, the Mormons. I think it's in Sherlock Holmes they write something about the Mormons.
It gets twisted because you're also saying what do they also have written? Helter Skelter. Where is Helter Skelter from? The White Album. What is another song on the White Album? Pigs. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood pointing at the screen here. Bruce Lee may have died from drinking too much water.
Okay.
Be water, my friends.
Yeah, drink water. Well, that's crazy. But
and what does Lee mean? Like the word Lee, doesn't that have to do with water or no? I don't know.
I mean, like I mean that's where the word levy would come from, right?
Levi. Levy comes from the tribe, right?
Levy to the
Levi
levy.
tribe. Genes, you have good genes, right?
Lee, nautical, the side away from the direction from which the wind blows. An area sheltered from the wind.
Oh, that's
So like
it would be used in nautical navigation of water.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. And where was Roman Polanski when he found out that the murders happened? He was scouting locations for Day of the Dolphin at sea. I didn't know that you would scout locations at sea. Like, it seems like, I mean, his first movie is Knife in the Water. During the trial of, if you can call it that, of Polanski, before they said, we'll put you into an institution, and if they determine that you're not depraved, I'll just let you go. And then they said you weren't depraved, and then he wouldn't let him go, and then he fled the country as soon as he got out, But there's the judge. This is crazy. This is totally relatable to fucking Synctank, excuse me, is that the judge literally brings up a synchronicity during those proceedings where he says outright that he goes, I've been looking at your film career, Roman, and I can't help but notice that you have certain themes. Among those themes is water. Water, water, water. Your first film is Knife in the Water. He does like a walkthrough, and it's true. if you go through his film career, there's repeated a water theme. And he's like, so I can't help but notice that this incident took place in a hot tub, you know? And it's just,
this is interesting. I got something else. Lee is upon the lee to drain to the lee. The sediment deposit in the containing vessel for wine and some other liquids. So it's like dregs. What the deposit of sedimentary in the water once you drain it, whether it be, I mean, there's a bunch of examples here of all kinds of different liquids, but mostly wine.
weird. Oh yeah, and then his son was died during the making of The Crow. Crowley. Somebody says it in the comments. Right? But no, that's good. Yeah. I'll always be a word man, better than a bird man. I don't know, man. That's weird. Crowley. Yeah. That's strange. Huh. But you know, they left that. That's like a snuff film, is it not? Like, they left the shot where he gets shot. All right.
Yeah.
Like, he falls off the table and then he jumps back up, and it's like, and then it's not him anymore. It's so weird. And they're like, oh, well, it's really convenient because he's wearing the makeup, you know, which is weird because it's always strange attracts to like Heath Ledger as the Joker to me. You know what I mean? Like the Crow character with the white makeup and yeah.
Oh,
and
for
then
sure.
Which brings us to Jack, right? Whose house the incident with Polanski happened in. And it's all the hot tub time machine stuff. If we had Alex here, we'd be going like, Alex and I have a talk interview, whatever, about hot tub time machine, and it ties into all of this because what's the date that happened with Polanski is 70. What is it? Is it 77? It's the same day and year as the biggest bomb threat in rock and roll history, which happened at an ABBA concert on the day, but that was bookended the 9th and the 11th. It's March 10th, 1977, which is bookended by two Hal Craig films, one being The Message and the other being Airport 77. The Message is about the birth of Islam. Airport 77 is about a plane hijacking by terrorists.
Flight 23.
Hal Craig wrote Waterloo, which was the reason why Kubrick didn't end up doing a Napoleon film. Is this Rod Steiger, Dino De Laurentiis movie, which syncs with ABBA's Waterloo. So I was like, this is such a avalanche of sync that's like personal to me. I should make a video on it. Besides, Cassandra, that's just more, you know, kind of detailed. But yeah, what the hell, man? Yeah, no, it's weird because
I found the reference to what you were talking about because you've mentioned this a couple of times. I think it's Roger Gunson, and this is the unsealed Polanski testimony, and the actual phrase he's talking about here is how every Roman Polanski movie has a theme: corruption meeting innocence over water.
Yeah,
that he was trying to impress to the jurors that even that event with Jack Nicholson, it was about a 13-year-old over water, meaning the jacuzzi, and that this he was trying to like relay that so the jurors could see the Polanski kept like reenacting this theme, not just in his movies but in real life too.
Right. And so what do we see in Hot Tub Time Machine when they show up at the house, the hotel, right, that's run down, and they're getting the room there? They say, they make a reference to The Shining and say, oh, is Lou going to be writing a book, and then we're all going to get axe murdered? And then there's, in both Hot Tub Time Machine 1 and 2, they emphasize the man in the bear outfit, which is another Shining reference, right? Like, and it's indicated that the bear ended up time traveling with them.
There's a lot of bears, if I remember.
Along with the squirrel on the play. But yeah, no,
there's a lot of squirrels.
The squirrel thing is huge. There's a massive sync there with the.
What do you mean the squirrel thing is huge? What squirrel thing?
Hot Tub Time Machine has multiple squirrels.
Yeah, so he said so the squirrel shows up and Lou barfs on the squirrel when it's the first thing that happens so a squirrel went with them, right? And so when they're making the bet, which is referencing Back to the Future 2, and they're making the bet with Johnny from the Karate Kid, who's there with the girl who has the name from Cobra Kai, right? So like, and the director of Cobra Kai is the director of Hot Tub Time Machine. So they're making the bet referencing Back to the Future 2 because he ends up giving him the almanac, so to speak. He's like, I told him away a bunch of games are going to go. He's going to get rich. The guy from Karate Kid, that there's the video made of like, is he really is Daniel actually the bad guy in Karate Kid, right? So like this gets complex, but the first, so in Hot Tub Time Machine, when Lou is killing himself with the exhaust in his garage, like there's the argument that the whole movie, like he dies there, and the whole rest of the movie is his death trip. The first thing you see after it cuts from him in the garage with the exhaust is a television set with a squirrel on it. And if you listen closely to the dialogue of what's being said in that scene, I can't do any of this justice, but it backs up and John Cusack is there watching the squirrel on this television set. Flash forward into the film when they're making the bet with when Lou is making the bet with the Karate Kid guy, which is kind of like almost like an indecent proposal kind of reference or whatever too. But he makes the bet on how this football game is going to go. And then like when it comes down to that moment with the pass and everything's going down, a squirrel runs out onto the field and screws the whole thing up. And they shout, "Squirrel on the play, squirrel on the play." And then it throws the whole thing off. And Lou shouts out, "I know that squirrel. That's a magic squirrel." And so, like, I cut a long story short here. I can't help it because there's just so much to it. But like, what happened during this election? Because there's this crazy like argument about like Trump being that character of Biff in Back to the Future 2, which this guy from Karate Kid is basically playing. Remember, Elizabeth Shue is the love interest in both Karate Kid and Back to the Future 2 and 3, right? So this girl is basically symbolically like playing her. So yeah, so what happened with this election is like right before the election happened, the most popular pet like in the world is murdered by law enforcement. These people with the TikTok and the Instagram, like
have you seen the new Superman yet?
The squirrel got murdered, right?
Well, this is an actual image from the ATF that proves it was self-defense. Just FYI.
So, of course.
Well, and when Kamala conceded, a squirrel ran across the stage too.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember that. Right.
So, but right before
I know that squirrel. That's a magic squirrel.
That's a magic squirrel ran across the stage. And it's like avenge me. Like it's so crazy. And
I have seen so many squirrels this last year that it actually really trips me out. Like freaks me out how many that I see. Like every time I look outside, there's a fucking squirrel out the side of my eyes. And I've been wondering too, because Elon Musk started posting some squirrel stuff too. Like he posted a squirrel in the middle of a labyrinth, like not too long after the peanut thing, but. I don't know. I had just a lot of like personal synchronistic squirrel encounters myself. So I was like, what the fuck does this squirrel mean?
Right. Well, Peanut was the name of the dog in Jury Duty with Pauly Shore that got experimented on by MK Ultra. So the CIA experimented on this dog, and the dog's name was Peanut. I named my dog after the dog in Jury Duty, which is why I remember that.
And also, the movie The Red Squirrel was one of Stanley Kubrick's favorites.
What? Weird.
What's the red squirrel?
That is a big cat, man.
What's the red squirrel? Do you know?
Let's see.
Have you seen it? You haven't seen it?
The Red Squirrel, a suicidal has-been rock star, tells an amnesiac woman that they are longtime lovers after he witnesses her crash her motorcycle.
Fascinating.
Well, there's another like suicide theme for you, David, because you said that whole Hot Tub Time Machine may have been like a suicidal life dream or whatever. Have you ever heard the theory that Sandy actually died on the beach in Greece, and so the whole movie is just like a what is that called, like a glimpse of what her life would have been?
Yeah, so it's Jacob's Ladder, right? So like the guy, what's the name of the guy who directed Jacob's Ladder? He's the same guy who did Fatal Attraction and the remake of Kubrick's Lolita.
Oh,
and so there's the argument that what's happening in Jacob's Ladder is taking multiple Stanley Kubrick movies and working them into one narrative, so that you have Full Metal Jacket, right? Which gets kind of complicated with what happens with Private Pile and how he's basically reincarnated in the second section of that movie. It's Kubrick's explanation for The Shining at the end of The Shining. Like he's on record, like it was a phone call, and he's called it an evil reincarnation trip. And so where basically he's dead, but it's like almost like Tibetan Bardo stuff. Like he's playing out as though he didn't die, and it just continues through time as this like basically like hellish nightmare thing. And then he's frozen in time, You know what I mean? Like at the like, and it just keeps recycling and recycling all like that's like the madness of it. But like
much like I resonate with that deeply, like for myself.
Right. So like when you watch Jacob's Ladder, like what happens? Like he's dead the whole time. And his chiropractor makes the point about he brings up oh God, who's the Eckhart, Meister Eckhart. And he says, how'd you get your doctorate without reading Eckhart? He says, you know, if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels freeing you from the earth. It's all a matter of how you look at it. So like I view the squirrel as relating to the klipot, which was literally the shells or the husks around holiness. So the thing about the squirrel is that the squirrel collects the nuts, right? And it like stores them up, you know? So it feels like there's this weird resonance with it's like the collector of the klipot, so to speak, or the like that it's a hidden hand director or something symbolically. I'm not saying that's literally what squirrels are, but you get my meaning. Like it feels like that there's some subliminal archetypal communication on the squirrel, and it would make sense that we would actually see it manifest with this like how this last election culminated, because it's kind of like in Pi when he's talking about the stock market where you have a million human minds at work and all this stuff. It's like we can't separate ourselves from these patterns that are inherent in nature, and so we see it externalized in like a dreamlike way, like the way Jung described in the material world. Like that's why it makes sense that they murdered the squirrel, like law enforcement murdered the squirrel, and it's like this like we're like that's not right, something's not right here, something's askew, right? Because this isn't, you know, like this we're not in the realm that we ideally would want to be in. We're in this hell realm, and like it's an indicator of it. And like it also speaks to the Valis thing with Philip K. Dick, where he related that there's like these cracks, so to speak, in our paradigm, and that the whole thing isn't as solid as we think it is. And we could end up in a completely different timeline at like the flick of a switch, and it could really be like that, you know, like this isn't,
is the red squirrel. So the red squirrel is a fever dream. It's basically a person who tries to commit suicide and has this dream that everything comes out on the top. Like he just had it up. Paranoid American just had it up where they had compared the red squirrel, which is from 1993, to Eyes Wide Shut. And the fact that you can't tell if it's a dream the whole time, in the same way that your whole theory about Hot Tub Time Machine is.
Yeah, Eyes Wide Shut. The novella is called Dream Story, and at the end, that's the whole point. She says, "No dream." He says, "No dream is ever just a dream." Right.
Right. Wow, that's good. That's a good talk.
That's a good talk.
Yeah,
good talk,
I liked all of it, David.
Trippy.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good time to start plugging everybody's stuff. This is David Charles Plate at MK Ultrasound 723 on Twitter. The best thing to do is you go to the highlights, and then you can watch all of these long format albums sync directly with movies. You can also click on his SyncBook link here, and then click on videos, and then you'll have a direct link to the David Plate SyncFlick section that's got a whole bunch more. That have you put all of them that are on here on the Twitter, or do you just got to go to both to get them all?
There's some on Twitter that aren't on here, and there's many that are on. There's more on here that aren't on Twitter. So yeah, but yeah, it goes both ways. So it's a mixture. My suggestion to people would be like, if there's an album and a film that you're familiar with, that you resonate with or you're interested in, that's a good place to start. Just because the more familiar you are with the lyrical content of an album, especially, like, because everything will sync with everything to some greater or lesser degree. That's just in the nature of things. But like when there's like a more of a direct communication that happens, so if you're really familiar with an album, and especially if you're a lyrically oriented person and you're familiar with the film's dialogue as well, because a lot of these are muted. Many of them have like volume up between the vocals and it just flows. Sometimes I'll like do a whole film where like I'll go through and turn the volume up between all the vocals, and then I'll just turn it back to mute afterwards if I feel like it was better that way or something, you know. But yeah, just, you know, see if one jumps out at you. I recommend Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Norman fucking Rockwell, because that's what
I'll have to see that. I didn't even know you had Turbo with Snoop Dogg reincarnated. What's the same there?
He's
Snoop Dogg is in.
Snoop Dogg is one of the snails in that film, and it flows great. It's trippy. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We also got Anna Nicole Wordsmith at Miss Nick 06 on Twitter that has just every day like a brand new breakdown. So what's today is weapons. I haven't actually seen weapons, so don't ruin it for me.
Oh, you did a sync. You're looking at a sync on. I want to know what the sync is on weapons with two. So like, I just shared about this too on mine because it's tripping me out. What do you got with the 217 thing?
Yeah, well, for me, like that movie really freaked me out because because my birthday's 217, and B, because like I spent a lot of years drinking alcoholically, and the movie is a lot about alcoholism, like a lot about it, which you don't think it is because you just think it's this horror movie, but like the horror is actually like we become the weapons once we become kind of weapons of mass destruction once we start like partaking in the parasitic vampiric substances.
Well, that's what the Shining is too, and us.
Yeah, and there's so many
protection against alcoholism.
The
right?
217 is about, that's where it starts, is in Stephen King Room 217 with the alcoholic woman, and there's even like a nod to Trevor Moore in this movie, and he supposedly like fell off of, I don't know what happened.
I think he did. I didn't used to think that he just fell, but no, there's too much evidence. And like he was on a podcast like right before he died, going off about the moonshine he was making. Like, okay,
yeah, I mean, he had like a drunk text to myself like that. Like he obviously had a substance abuse issue, but there's just, even Geronimo died on 217, and his skull and bones is the one that's in the George Bush, or the Brotherhood of Death cult, Skull and Bone Society is Geronimo's skull.
Right.
So there's like, and the kind of the Shining ties back to the Native American thing and how they used alcohol as a weapon.
Just to be clear, maybe people don't know, but most people do, I guess. But yeah, in the book The Shining, it's room 217. In the movie The Shining is 237. There's a thing where the Scarlet Woman in Greek, as it appears in the book of Revelation, the Greek gematria of that name is 667, right? Which is 666 plus 1. She rides atop the beast whose number is 666, right? So it's that plus 1. 216 is the gematria of Gavora, where the Klipot Kabbalistically are said to enter and rule during the interim of the fall, the lower worlds of the Kabbalistic tree. It's all kind of complex stuff, but 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. Okay, it's also 72 times 3. 72 gematria chesed, which is mercy, which is opposite the severity of Gavora on the Kabbalistic tree, right? They're the tops of the terrestrial pillars. And so when you say 217, you're saying 6 times 6 times 6 plus 1. Just like, so it seems to indicate the Scarlet Woman. What happens in room 237 in The Shining is this beautiful woman that turns into this, like evil, scary hag, right? So like it is basically, it speaks to the idea of the replication of Shekhinah, which is what the Scarlet Woman represents as like the Christian version of Lilith, right? So like Lilith and Samael and Lilith, that's like the beast and the Scarlet Woman in the old communication, which becomes the beast and the Scarlet Woman in the future, right? So it's like there's some weird communication around, like, because 237 is 6 times 6 times 6 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, as if to take the lightning flash from the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the Shefa or the emanated flow, the actual holiness, which gets enshrouded with the shell of the 216 from the 216, which is the 6 times 6 times 6 is how the Klipot temporarily rule the tree, which are the shells of the husks around holiness, which is 777. So there's like this interplay that happens. So it feels as though Kubrick was totally encoded this Kabbalistic communication with how the film relates to the book. It's so insane. Like, yeah, I don't know. And also that it all relates to John Lennon, because the book is apparently named after Instant Karma with "We All Shine On." I
didn't know that.
Well, it's the first page of the book is where the dedication is from Stephen King to his son Joe King, who quote unquote shines on. And so and then if you look at the timing too, it's crazy because it's like a few months before John Lennon's killed. In all likelihood, Mark David Chapman went to see it. What's the most famous line in the movie is "Here's Johnny." His other target was Johnny Carson. Like, it's so bizarre. Yeah. And then he's killed in front of the Dakota, where Rosemary's Baby was filmed, or at least the exteriors, So yeah, and then even if you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's his character's name, which he says is Decate. The little girl explains it's Decate, and he says, "Oh, I thought it was Dakota," and she's like, "I'm pretty sure it's Decate." But yeah, it's like yeah.
And speaking of 666, here is Meta Egg, the Meta Egg YouTube channel, Meta_Egg, and we can definitely pump these numbers. I think more people tuned into this episode. So go ahead right now and just go to Meta Egg on YouTube and throw Will some more subscribe.
I've got some, Thomas, we should do another show later this week about Clifford that you had me watch. And that movie
I'm ready, man. I had you watch. I've watched it like 4 or 5 times now since we talked about it. Because you mentioned it's not an easy one. It's all over the place, but it totally shaped my worldview a little bit because they show Martin Short hacking the world around him, hacking the environment, using NLP tricks on adults. It was this kid that was bending the adult world around to his will to just go to Disney World, essentially. And it was so empowering as a kid to be like, oh, anyone can be, even though you know that it's another adult manipulating other adults, it empowers the child, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I assume that's exactly the same read that you got on it.
There's a lot going on. There's some money thrown at that movie. I just don't know why there's money thrown at that.
Well, okay. Just right off the bat, I'm like, it's Grogan. What's his name? So what's the father's name? Not father, but the uncle.
Oh, what's his name?
He's the guy from Beethoven.
Yes, I thought about that.
Beethoven is the big dog, right? And then
right,
the big red dog.
Right.
And so there's something.
Yeah, because when most people say Clifford, they think that you're talking about the big red dog. But there's a movie with Martin Short that has nothing to do with the big dog. I mean, I guess you could say the dinosaur is his dog. But anyways,
Scary
there's
Larry.
not really much going on with. But the dad who's in Clifford is in Beethoven, and he plays basically the exact same role.
Same part.
He's annoyed at Martin Short like he's annoyed at the dog.
Mm-hmm.
But I think thought of that too. I'm glad you picked that up.
I think that's just him. That's just him as a person that gets cast to act as himself. Like, we're going to just annoy you and we're going to film it.
Right. Although the T-Rex does get equated with the dog quite a bit, and that's the focus of Scary Larry, right?
Well, his name is Rex, right? T-Rex is the name what you call your dog, right? But that's
right, and king in Latin, right? But yeah.
And we talked about almost
here on Waco. There's a little bit here on Philip K. Dick. There's a lot of movies. You can see David and I had an episode that was about Hot Tub Time Machine. A lot of the stuff that's been pulled down, I had big problems with copyright. So I'm about to move a lot of the stuff that has been pulled down with me and David.
Did they pull down the White Album one and Rosemary's Baby?
Right, that one, which I don't have the ability to re-edit it, so I'm basically just going to put it up on Patreon for free here. I'm about to start.
Damn, you got rid of that one? That sucks. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it does suck. It does suck. And I've had a lot of suck. There's been a lot of suck that's happened on this channel, but it's more's coming. I'm about to crank it back up and make a bunch of shorts, and I've had better success on shorts on other platforms like Instagram and like TikTok. So I'll move a bunch of those over there and then create a LinkedIn where everybody can find the stuff. But
do you allow for advertising on your videos?
What's that?
Do you allow for advertising on your videos?
I think so, but
okay, because just so you know, they can take videos down, and if you allow for advertising, sometimes they'll even put them back up. Because why is that? I think one of the reasons is because
still make money
advertisers actually have a ground to stand on that you don't. So if advertisers want your video up so that they can advertise what they want to, YouTube actually is more likely to allow the video to continue.
Well, they got more incentive if that's something they can throw an advertisement in front of.
And like it sucks. Like people complain more and more about like when they're watching this that they get interrupted by advertisements. If you're a member, I guess that doesn't hapen. So there's like
if you go up to the search thing and type in Meta Plus, I think, or not there at the very top. I had another channel that I started right when Sync started, basically
called Meta Plus.
It should be called Meta Plus now. It was originally called Satori All Me, but I changed the name to Meta Plus. It might not be registered.
It's gonna get Meta Quest.
You're competing with Facebook.
Type in this. Type in Mel Gibson gets high. Type in Mel Gibson gets high.
Let's be clear though, is that Will made it Meta before Facebook changed its thing to
There
Meta.
you go.
Wow.
See, the original title is still what it's under, but Meta Plus had a whole bunch of more videos that I would do where I was interacting with the actors and so forth. But what happened was it got yanked down. A lot of this stuff was unmonetizable.
Oh,
because
watch
of
Man in the Mirror. Man in the Mirror
copyright.
is one of your better ones. I love that video.
You can see some of these have a lot more views than other ones, but most of them basically got shadow banned because of copyright. So Meta Egg was an attempt to get around copyright, but it still got shadow banned in and of itself.
Is the Ellen Page one on here? The one about
that's down at the bottom called Isis Incognito, which was
that's a good one.
I put out. It was really weird because that one and Plant Consciousness was about Natalie Portman. In it, I said that I was going to make a final Natalie Portman called Jesus in the Sky of Diamonds. And she's actually in a movie called Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds that came out of like a decade after I kind of made that prediction. But
oh, wow. Weird.
Yeah, that one, probably Man in the Mirror, people like a lot, even though it doesn't have a much.
I made a response video to Man in the Mirror, actually. That
has more shit on Vimeo. And then I did with Andreas Jones, which was an actor who runs a synchronicity show, like a game show that has been tied to SyncBook. But the fact is that he had done a lot of work that I was able to analyze. And then when I read his book, which you can see there called Accidental Initiations, I realized that there was a bunch of connections that were personal to him that pop up in his movies. So that was one of the first investigations where you're trying to find out what this has to do with actors. And since then, I've had a lot of contact with other actors that as soon as me and Paranoid American do a show and Alex and I do a show, I'll start having on actors where I'm sitting there and showing the actors their syncs.
Yeah.
So any support anybody can give me, go to Meta Egg and subscribe. Like, quit the nonsense. You might not like me. Go subscribe.
Stop messing around. And then also don't mess around. Go directly to paranoidamerican.com and buy yourself a comic book. Here's a really good one, actually. This is about the Bavarian Illuminati that I worked on with Donut. Breaks down the entire historical basis. It talks about Bohemian Grove. It talks about Lady Gaga. It talks about Hollywood and Disney. It goes into all the weird schizo tangents that you'd want to. And there's plenty of other projects that we got lined up too. I've been working on one with David for the last year or two now that kind of tries to break down Kabbalah and Kubrick films and the Golden Bough and the Crowley Thoth deck and a million different things. It's very ambitious, but it's coming out freaking amazing. And I've also been teasing a few different things on social media. The Satanic Panic comic that I've been working on, I'm going to do that one in color. So make sure you follow me on socials. You'll see some previews of all that. And I also want to give a shout out to Heidi Love, who was on Tinfoil Hat. I do a show with her every month called Monthly Mormon Monday. And she did a show on Tinfoil Hat, episode 911, which was really good on Sam Tripoli's show. And then shout out to Sam Tripoli, who name dropped me on Joe Rogan on the last episode. So that's the update for this week.
I didn't mention that when I found out about you being on Joe Rogan, but that props to that. Good job.
Yeah.
My CIA handlers are finally like talking to the right people. So,
but yeah,
maybe next week Andreas will be here. Nobody knows, but until then, see you guys.
Traveler. People were asking in the comments in the beginning, like, where you guys been or whatever. But yeah, so Andreas is basically playing Indiana Jones of the Bosnian pyramids. So now he's beyond the Bosnian pyramids. Where is he at this point? He was
Montenegro on the beach.
Right.
Hanging out with the Young Turks 2.0.
I'm so happy to see that you have that many tabs open. I don't feel that bad anymore.
Oh, this is nothing. This is nothing. This is one of my 5 screens. All right, well, let me go free up some memory. I'll see you guys.
Good night.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.